Hi, I'm Mick Garris, and today's Trailer from Hell is one of the great irreverent British comedies that is very much of its day, 1969, The Magic Christian, starring Peter Sellers and Ringo Starr. Well, you start with the Union Jack and the music of Thunderclap Newman, and you've got me. This is 1969. I was in high school, and everything about this movie appealed to me. Not only was it Peter Sellers, but it was one of the Beatles. It had songs by Badfinger, who were protégés of Paul McCartney's, and they were the first band on Apple Records. It had two of the members of Monty Python, who I'd never heard of yet, but this was my first exposure to them. And it was irreverent and anti-establishment and against the wealthy, and I mean it was everything I wanted from a movie, and it was really, really funny. It was also one of the first movies where the pop songs were actually an important part of the score. The Graduate was probably the first one of those with the Simon and Garfunkel songs. But the songs by Badfinger in here, particularly Come and Get It, are really, really an important part of this. And back in my days of music journalism, starting in 1969, I interviewed a lot of these people, and I had interviewed Badfinger a couple of times before first Pete Ham hung himself with a note blaming his death on their manager screwing them over. And then 5 years later, Tommy Evans did the same thing, hung himself with the same protest against management. Anyway, Something in the Air is another important song in this by Thunderclap Newman. And I almost used that for the end titles of Riding the Bullet before we settled on the Youngbloods Get Together. But 1969 was a great year for music as well as movies. And here's Graham Chapman from Monty Python as the head of the Oxford rowing team. He and John Cleese both have very brief appearances in this film. And they actually wrote a draft of the script, but the only things remaining from their script are their own scenes. Each of them has a scene in there, and that's all that's left. And you have Raquel Welch wearing almost nothing and whipping the rowing crew of sweaty, naked ladies of every persuasion. So who would not like this movie, especially in 1969? And it ends up with this great sequence of people diving into a vat filled with piss, shit, and blood to take out cash that Peter Sellers, the wacky billionaire, has thrown in for them to debase themselves. So it's as irreverent and anti-establishment as it can possibly be, which is just the way I liked it in 1969 and still today. Oh, and I can't forget these other very important things. You've got Christopher Lee in Dracula drag, you have Yul Brynner in female drag, and you have Roman Polanski. I mean, all of these great cameos in this movie. It's the perfect film.
Who knows what evil lurks in the heart of